Hello, everyone, and good morning. We have a big show for you today with some very important updates. Katie Halper breaks down the latest on Julian Assange's extradition battle. Plus, our panelists weigh in on Trump's lawsuit against big tech. But first, 4 suspects connected to the assassination of Haiti's President Jovenel Moïse were killed by police Wednesday. 2 more have been detained, according to Haiti's ambassador to the United States. Brian Concannon Jr., Executive Director of Project Blueprint, joins us now to discuss.
Welcome, Brian.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for covering Haiti.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we want to start with trying to figure out exactly what happened here. So Ambassador Edmond has said he believed these suspects received assistance from Haitian nationals based on the vehicles that they used to get to the presidential residence, to Jovenel Moïse residence on that night. And that's where he was killed. He'd earlier referred to them as mercenaries and, quote, well-trained killers. You have video from the scene that shows them speaking Spanish. They presented themselves as drug enforcement agents. What can we make of who may be behind this assassination based on the information that we have right now?
I think to start, we need to be very careful about putting too much into the information that we do have. As you know, videos can be doctored. Eyewitness reports right afterwards can be unreliable, or they can be manipulated. And one of the things that's going on in Haiti is there is a power struggle. There are many groups and individuals that have a motive to have done this attack, and any of them could have also put out some of these videos as a way to create a false trail or to create a narrative that helps them out. So I think first we need to be careful about all these public statements until we have some pretty hard and verifiable facts. Second, if it is true that these are foreign mercenaries, that does, I think, limit the list of suspects, because I think that some of the people that have been proposed are Haitian gang members, Haitian political parties. Most of them are probably not going to have the capacity to bring in a foreign mercenary squad. But there are groups that can, including economic elites, including obviously foreign actors that have some interest in this. But other than that, I really think it's premature to make any firm conclusions on who may be responsible.
Oh, so Brian, how confident can we be, and how confident are you that the 4 suspects that they say were killed and the 2 that were detained actually are the ones who were involved in the assassination? The claim that they're making is that they intercepted the crew as they were fleeing the scene and engaged in an hours long kind of confrontation that led to this. But how confident are you and our Haitians receiving this news that that's actually true?
I think people are being careful about being confident about that. I haven't seen any reason to specifically doubt that account, but again, governments in the past have rounded up the usual suspects. That's certainly a possibility. It's also a possibility that whoever did the attack somehow set things up so that other people would be targeted for that. And especially with people suspects who are deceased, it's much harder to confirm that they were in fact involved. So I think most people in Haiti are waiting for more details and confirmation until they come to conclusions.
Yeah, and earlier you got into the essential context here, which is that there are all of these competing factions on the ground in Haiti with competing motives that need to be sort of disentangled in order to understand exactly what's happening and what the motivations might look like on behalf of the police who are issuing public statements, on behalf of the ambassador issuing public statements, on behalf of people who obviously took these terrible actions. So what can you tell us about what those motivations look like? What are those competing factions? What is actually happening in the dynamics, political dynamics of Haiti right now?
Yeah, like what is the list of people who have both the motive and the means to do something like this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the critical question, I think, right now. President Moïse, during his 3.5 years in office, has persistently cut down Haiti's democracy. He has let Parliament expire without having elections. He let all local officials' terms expire without having elections. He has also supported gangs that have taken the streets of Haiti, and in some cases they have furthered the president's aims, but in some cases they have turned on him and have criticized or have attacked government people. Even within the police force, there are factions that are loyal to President Moïse. There are rank and file members who have been on strike, sometimes engaging in violent strikes. Within President Moïse's party, there are factions that are fighting fairly bitterly, and President Moïse himself has been implicated in money laundering, which is likely tied to drug trafficking, and massive corruption in to the tunes of literally billions of dollars. So there are lots of people that would have a motive to stop President Moïse, whether it's people who are involved in corruption with him, whether it's political rivals, whether it's gang members. A lot of these people have an established capacity for violence. Although we must point out that the killing of a president is pretty unusual. Haiti's had a lot of violence over the last 30 years, but has not had a presidential assassination in over a century.
Yeah, the explosion of kind of Western mercenaries around the globe is also kind of bearing bitter fruit here. Over at The Intercept, we reported recently that the outgoing Bolivian coup government had attempted to bring in a bunch of American mercenaries to try to hold on to power after losing a recent election. We saw several mercenaries killed trying to coup the Venezuelan government, trying to invade it, and with the proliferation of all of these kind of mercenary forces, it does now seem like non-state actors have at their disposal professional tactical units like this that can carry out an operation like this. There's been some reporting that the assassins claimed to be Drug Enforcement Administration agents, and that's how they gained entry, into the residence.
Yeah.
In the first instance, is that, as far as you understand, something that we can more or less take as true?
I'm still not sure that we can necessarily take that as true, but there's recent precedent for that in Haiti. Last year, a group of mostly American mercenaries were apparently about to pull off some kind of an attack on Haiti's national bank when they were stopped. They were whisked out of the country with the help of the U.S. Embassy, and they were never fully prosecuted, and the truth as to what they were doing has never come out. But it's that from that incident alone, it's very clear that foreign mercenaries are able to act in Haiti and are able to get important support both from Haitian actors and from the international community.
So Haiti has been mired in a constitutional power struggle, as many people probably now know, under President Moïse, with opposition protests that have led to bloody clashes with police and have paralyzed large swaths of the country. Brian, as we're talking about sort of the political dynamics in Haiti, how much is that constitutional power struggle playing into the motivations, potential motivations for somebody, whether they're Western mercenaries, whether they're associated with the Haitian police, whether they're associated with political opponents, to carry out an assassination on President Moïse?
It certainly the assassination of President Moïse certainly falls into an escalating pattern of political violence. Over the last couple of years, you've had large-scale, in the hundreds, killings by police. You've also had in the multiple hundreds killings by gangs associated with the government in attacks against opposition neighborhoods. Most recently, a week and a half ago, you had an assassination of a journalist and a human rights activist as part of a killing of 15 people in one night in dispersed incidents. So you certainly have a climate of political violence that has in large part been supported and advanced by President Moïse and his party. And I think that, when you get to the point where you are having violence as a preferred method of handling politics, then even the president is exposed. It's also important that President Moïse has removed any nonviolent checks on the government. First of all, he allowed Parliament to expire, but he's also neutralized the courts. He's fired 3 Supreme Court justices completely illegally. He's intimidated the press. Even back 2 years ago, I was in Haiti, and I was at a press conference where we were talking about a massacre done by gangs against opposition strongholds, and the Haitian journalists didn't ask us about the events that we were investigating, because they already knew. What they were asking is, why is the world letting this happen to Haiti? They were clearly terrified, and this was 2 years ago, and things have gotten much worse, and the world has really not done anything while the violence against Moïse's opponents increased.
And Brian, real quickly, what has been the role of the international community and of Western donors like Clinton Foundation and others, like in the politics, in the internal domestic politics of Haiti?
Because we know an enormous amount of foreign aid has poured into Haiti since the 2010 earthquake, and then after that. So to Ryan's point, what has the role been of that aid?
So for private organizations or semi-private like the Clinton Foundation, they've played less of a role now. Their work was very controversial in the years following the earthquake. Right now, I believe most of the impact of foreign support has been through government support, and that's been very controversial in Haiti. Haiti sees the United States especially as propping up President Moïse. They also, both in terms of funding his government, but also in terms of diplomatic support. As Haitians have taken to the streets to call for more democracy, the U.S. government, under both the Trump and the Biden administrations, have again and again expressed their deep support for President Moïse and have downplayed calls of civil society for more democratic reforms. And so Haitians really feel that they've been abandoned by certainly the United States, but also by the United Nations and by the Organization of American States, which has also been trying to cover up President Moïse's crimes.
Right. Well, Brian Concannon, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for having such a good discussion about Haiti.
Yeah, I'll have you back again soon, and we'll have more for you right after this.